what you're seeing happening now in the rest of Africa is that there's so much development that's actually in country. You're getting the growth of many large African and certainly fast-growing African companies, and you're getting a lot more African products in the stores, in supermarkets across Africa. You're getting, just a lot more players in the financial services and every other, and even in some countries now, in the oil and gas sector, once seen as the preserve of large multinationals, you're now starting to see a lot of African-owned oil and companies in the oil and gas kind of upstream, downstream world, which is a big change. So I think the fact is that we don't know everything, and we can't tell everybody what to do, because a lot of this is not, these developments have not come off South Africa's intervention in the rest of Africa or interaction with. And I'm not saying we haven't played a role. I think we certainly have. I think South Africa has played a much bigger role than we often get credit for. I think we've become almost scared now. I think it's almost turned the other way. We're almost scared to say that we also have done things in other African countries that have been good for those countries, because people think that we somehow trying to claim credit for that development. But I do think we have played a role, and just thinking about the rebasing of the Nigerian GDP, and I made the remark that MTN has played quite a big role in that. If you think about the growth of telecoms, which was identified as one of the big growth sectors, and Nigerians were very kind of, you're trying to take credit for the, South Africa is somehow trying to take credit. I don't think that's absolutely true, but I think there's always a danger that we have that, because South Africa has always been viewed as a different, something different in the rest of Africa. Inevitably an Africa strategy is part of a rollout, and I think one of the problems people have is that while they're rolling out, that's when they find out all the pitfalls and the problems and so on. So that speaks to what Victor's saying, about the need to be flexible, and I think what a lot of companies here and the people who on the ground are not the same people who make the decisions in the boardrooms, are the people who have to be flexible, and they don't always have the support of the boards back home or the executives back home who don't actually understand the lay of the land. But I think increasingly, companies have learnt, and we're talking Tiger Brands. These poor South African companies that make a mistake and pull out of a country, they never, 10 years later, people still flag them as the example. But that's just how it is, I'm afraid. When Woolworths pulled out of Nigeria, a lot of media would call me and say, well, does this mean South Africans can't operate? So it's really difficult for them to operate in Nigeria, because now that's on the back of Telkom, on the back of Nando's, on the back of this one and that one. And, if you look at each one, and I think this is very important, as I say, it gets back to that sort of broad sweep of Africa, this and whatever, is that each one of those companies had their own specific problem. And it wasn't as much a problem of the country as it was of their own strategy in that country. And I think it's very glib to talk about it as being a problem of operating in Nigeria. Of course it is. It is difficult. It's expensive to operate in Nigeria and many other places. You talk about the grapes in Shoprite. Massive problems in the supply chain that are nothing to do with Shoprite. They're to do with borders and paying for goods to get through ports and all sorts of demurrage and so on and so forth. So I think, but nevertheless, those are instructive examples. What went wrong? What was there are different reasons for it. What were they? And I think that's what we really should be taking away from that, because a lot of other people fail in these African markets too. It's not just a South African thing, but we should be much better prepared, being a part of the same continent, for that cultural difference. And Lyle asked about the fast-moving consumer goods. I was just doing some research in that area in Nigeria and Kenya earlier this year, and just one small example of the differentness, if you like, of these things is that in Nigeria people really like brands that they know and understand. They're prepared to pay for those brands, and they like them to be foreign. I mean, it's starting to change now. In Kenya, you get much more of what they call the patriotic consumer. In both countries, you have the cosmopolitan consumer who straddles both of those. So, that's just in one small shift. You've got, and that was one of the Woolworths issues, is they weren't a brand of any sort, really. They fell square in the middle, didn't promote themselves properly, in fact, at all, in a market that didn't know them, but they thought the market did know them. Because they're so big here, and that's another one of those mistakes that people make. So just on the ground, these very different attitudinal issues, and that's often what people don't build into their strategies. There's a lot of reports out there, a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, maps, charts, you name it, but it's actually the stuff, the stuff that you can't capture that easily. It's the attitudinal kind of issues, and which is part of business culture, the evolution of businesses, of the economies, that you have to really build into your strategy as much as all of that other important stuff.